Television news sources are being dishonest, as the judges they have with them too, and the FBI representatives. They were backed into uses of the differences between all their military, foreign, and domestic from off all locations. Then further on off them, collusions at other locations are increasingly roles with predicate acts with facts at each age of in nature, fact sheet nature. We have the sciences not just abridged exactly the way the breaching method employed needs uses of blaming other things, others, ourselves for things that it caused. For example, uses of differences, not just of color, not just of the two colors, black and white, of black pupils, white to eyes, which is right where and how nature communicates about it shows us its difference, where we have the same colorized, different colorized at the same time, distinctly from other species' bodies too, but also non-distinctly. Simultaneously, is showing us the value of how we are simultaneous nature, distinctly from how we are in individual nature, sequence nature of the simultaneous species bodies, not just our own species body. And this comes with the demonstration slash S of there being a further hyper simultaneous, a distinct identity of simultaneous with its distinct identity of relationship to itself and value of that relative to scientific appreciation of where and how. Well, all that comes with demonstrations about how we are a distinct species by what is not them or us that invented why and how they have the same quality aspects in nature of consciousness with us too, even insects. And this is where, you know, Earth has a concentrated identity of relationship to itself as a distinct temporary where the complete identity of all of space slash existence, just like your complete identity, it's positive to all parts of your body equally. But then there's a concentrated difference where we have a little bit more temporary positive, which can be temporary or lasting, positive as criminal insidiousness nature of positive. And regarding use slash S of it, because where and how people debate, they are relying on other people's evidences. And the fact alone that things are published or that experts back them up, that originally and still is an anticipated use by our breaching method, but by the breaching method that was entrenched before America's founders were born and through the founding of America, it had already entrenched too deep to uproot, not just rules with slavery with color. We attend this with honesty and science, with the honesty for the debate. Two guys are not debatable. You're not capable of it because you have had other communicated for James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan than they had communicated for themselves about how there was a breaching that was measuring and maintaining everyone collusion with itself and with things that made everyone do it against everyone else and blame it on, otherwise be sensed. It had perfected this method from some ancient times. It forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded the names of the species body to blame other things, others, or selves for what it caused and for what nature keeps demonstrating without realizing that. And it effectively pulled that off and propagated natures of industries, styles and logic, natures of reason that can't defend themselves and afford to have discernment. We have people using phrases like war crimes, leaving out how there was this breaching method that used also the difference between the three branches of government's guilt and roles the corrections offices, the judicial, next to it, the prisons and their colonial equivalents in early states. The difference between that, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all natures of communications, locations, or news itself, the difference of that is also used. Roles measured and maintained, with subject treatments used to measure and maintain quality aspects in nature that can't defend themselves and afford to be, let alone to protract. Short words with convictions and or nature used properly. Criminal insidiousness natures of means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures are forced by the nature of with the suburb, how the suburbs were tactically denatured, and this being relative also to how the to answers, also answers replaced with where and how many Americans from suburbs and the people in the cities want demonstrated how they could discern clearer than day. The people in the cities, the people in the suburbs aren't even free, let alone the people in the cities, per the roles with the torture, extortion, slavery method that the tactically denatured identity of the ground, its identity relationship to itself too, multi-front, tactically denatured, and the value of that. The nature of debate contains quality aspects in nature, reliant upon things being and having been forced before courts, originally and still roles with predicate acts with facts methods, changing and fabricating what's recorded on a mass scale. Remote uses of the differences between the police forms involvements, the courts involvements, the private tied to them, and their roles with a whole bunch of different countries. Increasingly, they're lying to family members about other family members and pretend because there are constantly all natures of investigations and investigators upon all locations per that sick method that knew that there would only be capable of being needs for such, where those truths are associated with it too. It propagated roles with that self-cultivated, reliant styles, logic, identities of logic, needs in nature, reliant upon other things, others, or ourselves, blamed for what it caused. Keeps at all locations, areas, and states. There are proofs that, the intelligence community has roles with kids. On a mass scale, before they take oaths, they have roles with predicate acts with facts. Relative here, where they have black KKK theme, Confederate flag theme with the military police and Yukon names. Yukon there's a Mark Violet who has a mother and has a family and brother and family members and neighbors involved with Yukon with medical corruption with Hartford Hospital with the names next to it. And that's a medical campus. And note the name campus goes with the Campus Marcius, the republic for which we stand. Not just the park in Detroit used to measure and maintain. Each of the sciences, all exceptions like the sports, like the names of the different athletic departments. Easily used, as the forgiveness is because they're easily used where differences are used and where sense and sensibilities are used, not to use the way she's trying to use it. Jane Austen with the phrase sense and sensibility, except for how, all bodies have sense and sensibilities with a quality of fact-achieving nature that will not allow them to describe accurately and or nor the exceptions associated with it because of the differences on all sides of criminal and civil cases. The lawyers, their sources, in other words, the people at the crime scenes, next to the crime scenes, the killed people, the reported killed people, the reported killers. And the news at the same time, all sides of the case, and the people with the courts, with all kinds of federal evidences, crimes together. Uses of truths for lies. because they have roles with predicate acts with facts. All natures of organized crime, everything that came before them. So long since before they can't afford to have discerned what really causes, or causes, in other words, negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and or know how recorded our means to discern other things, others, or selves, blamed for demonstrations of that by nature, and they're getting away with it because those are simultaneously collusions. The breaching method propagated, self-cultivated, by styles, needs, natures, and roles with these systems tactical ulterior from the one that is the identity of space/existence that employ demonstration, that employs demonstration of difference, unlike any other body. So we could discern if one is changing, not treating positive and negative the way it does, which is how we could discern. It's the identity, for example, as 5 parts of time that are increasingly valued as its complete identity, distinctly. And that's increasingly valuing and gaining the value of their distinct, like those 3 parts of time that we know to an extent of having been true always. That portion of time that is past that was true always. There is that portion of time that is true always now. And there is that portion of time, like the seasons, about. You already know what its value now. You could already discern its identity. You could already discern its identity in relationship to itself. And with that, there is a portion of time beyond that we don't know about. We know about it now. We know that about it now. And we know there's a portion of time that we don't know about that came before. The extent of the past that we do know about. And when we pay attention to all 5 parts of these time, we can learn more where we are shown to know more and how we could know more about the portions we don't know about. It comes also with demonstrations of how it is functional, being grouped 3 ways distinctly from how it is grouped 5 ways, and how it is distinct, being hyper invisible from invisible but still discernible. In English and other ancient languages are more probably having been demonstrably having been revealed teaching this way. The parts of speech are about the parts of this identity of hyper-simultaneous nature. This distinct identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible. Reason as why we need more than one name for the verb. As why we could only grapple with subjects individually grouped and simultaneous to an extent. While all exceptions in exception nature are a demonstration of how it uses the identity of space/existence. It uses exception nature the same way we do, but hyper additional ways. It is a very sick thing that forces little kids and adults to need to lie, as the breaching method knew it would have to. It knew every single identity of the laws, is a style forced by nature itself, of logic and reason that can afford to be, let alone to protract. Short words with convictions proper by the Constitution unabridged, and provide we have rights too numerous to list. No one has been honest with the Corps. And this breaching method showed that the Corps has the Marine Corps, the military, the Air Force, other branches of it, from the founding locations with George Washington had to come to counter-extort and leave slavery entrenched. Northern colonies and southern colonies in northern states, southern states, had to force the other founders uh, to, to damage control. Now, in other words, still everyone's speech was measured and maintained. Collusions couldn't entertain that. Again, or for it to be, let alone to protract, anyone with convictions right. Anyone not leaving the scientific value of the breaching method out. They would be sent through our own, and still are. Our founders communicated for us not to leave out the scientific value of the breaching method. There are recorded means to discern that. Whether anyone who would debate it, there are quality aspects. They have quality aspects, nature, and demonstration is the same thing. Inherent, active, progressive demonstration is the same thing by nature itself that we can discern. But this is why it's critical to understand where and how the difference between states' guilds or federal guilt or private tied to them or overt criminal enterprises, private ones, or people associated with the campuses, the crime scenes, and next to all of them. All natures of police forms, task force roles, things like that. The difference of that is used. They have predicate acts with facts methods roles. Black pupils. There is a judge Napolitano associated with Fox Connecticut News with police that are refusing to identify themselves. And courts, all exceptions, exception nature, appear to be a demonstration of other, come with demonstration of the same thing. They switch forged names. They did this to hide what was recorded actually before the World Trade Center attack. I caught them doing, which was also an extension of their roles with Ray Collusion and people with more than one person with the name Joe DeMauro, and their roles with names on all sides of the community center in Wethersfield, Connecticut. There's a Subby Vigerio and Jeremy Grohl and a whole bunch of people tied to them involved with foreign and domestic. Their identities used remotely also between the campuses per method /S. And their mode and this breaching method knew that it would have to keep its so to speak, its hyper-forensic trail, appearing to be other things, others yourselves, and keeping it blamed on that. Roles blaming other things, others yourselves, like with the problems with the borders. Overt criminal enterprises and private ones are involved fabricating audio and video transcripts with prosecutors and judges and their family members personally with foreign and domestic doctors. Remote uses of America's identity remotely through Harvard Hospital, planting fake conversations and ties to people and of all ages. After having been collusion, stacking predicate acts with facts into databases on a mass scale. The intelligence community, the difference between the intelligence community being the ones criminally foreign influence, or the branches of government, or the their family members, their neighbors too, because everyone next to everyone. There's a quality of fact-cheaping nature that is forced. Everyone blames on other things other than themselves. Like, for example, the real causes of why everyone left out how we have black pupils, white divides. We have hyper-evidential here that can be used to discern criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and roles between the differences of the people who are lawyers or not, as collusions originally instilled. All sides in criminal and civil cases, there are remote uses of them there and consciously at other locations. People associated with the school shootings, locations, and their ties to Wethersfield and their roles with interstates, state police families. A whole bunch of people tied to the name Collusion and Mike Roberts and his neighbors, and their roles with Daryl Chandler and his family. I don't even know them, and his educators. and places associated with them. Also has their roles with Robert Rodriguez, who's one of the ones involved with child offenders, involved with all these police forms and the courts that are using roles with all sides of cases and self-valued roles with their syntax, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, forcing things before courts as collusions. And with Facebook, the difference between them as the ones criminally foreign influence Facebook, the judges, family members, the Britain Superior Court has federal crimes with Facebook families. And before it was Facebook, they have crimes with databases, with data racketeering, worse than war crimes. Also, leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since at West Hartford locations, Hartford courts and the Britain courts, families and Connecticut's district courts, families involved at West Hartford locations, and Wethersfield interbranch through time with the names involved. All along Route 175 are people that planted it, sought me out to plant evidence, record, confess, demonstrate, confirm all their roles with mayors from Wethersfield involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders on a method /S on a mass scale that they don't even understand the extent of, because that's how nature is demonstrating it manifest. And that's the way the breaching method understood nature would be demonstrating it manifest. While nature, too, is demonstrating us a breaching method is involved here. This is why the suburbs are manifest the way they are in America, in Russia, and in Ukraine. Tactically denatured since before cars and before America's founders were even born. Born into fact-cheaping nature, torture, extortion, slavery method, where everyone had to hide their roles, actual, with the American Revolution, with the Constitutional Convention, and with the Declaration of Independence before that. We're supposed to understand that. Instead, we have a nature debate. We have self-valued roles used to measure and maintain self-valued roles or that body is sensed. Because our founders communicated for us to understand how people could pretend they should be respected as courts and police forms, and or as the people that are being hurt by them too, as the difference between that too. We're supposed to be led by the hyper invisible but still discernible. This is what nature itself can be shown to be demonstrating to us, Black pupils. How they get away with this is by jumping people, as uses of the word class too, where they have people from other classes that aren't even in the same classes. See, more and more they know they learn through time. They're shown they have to hide that. This breaching method shows all identities of sophistication, of non-sophistication. Where they're forced shared roles with others' names involved at each campus we went to. Every single person. It's a singular identity theft, fraud, slander method that no one wants collusions with, Black pupils. This breaching method makes exceptions. There is an order to where and to how everyone blamed other things, others allowed other people to blame other things, others ourselves, for things that nature showed us when we were little kids. There was a singular breaching method, sickly distinctly against the Native Americans, sickly distinctly against the colonists, sickly distinctly against the countries they came from, sickly distinctly against the ancients. But then when we really look at things properly, that proves that the ancients, those sciences became criminally foreign influence, but forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to defend the uses of the names of the sciences while not realizing that was the outcome, to keep that self-defended. See, this breaching method made not just the North and South still rolls with slavery. And then with our founders' plan that forced unity fake. And still, the telling of it is still used to sense for and to hide the breaching method's roles with the Civil War. And our founders' roles with it, which our founders wanted to show that breaching method was entrenched with slavery. It was to blame. Northern colonies and southern colonies still rolls with it right through the slavery. And what is it? That's slavery. What people are stacked into at New York City, the proverbial North. These are cities and suburbs throughout the world. Still, the suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. People reliant upon food and resources from other locations, now tactical ulterior from how nature forced that naturally, not as criminal insidiousness nature. Nature, where nature teaches us the difference between criminal insidiousness nature, distinctly from the formal identities of the law, who can't afford to have discerned or used the hyper-evidential, even though they needed that, which we could discern it as, relative to this being, that we could discern, that identity of hyper-simultaneous, that is not our species body, is not as the other species bodies, but it is anyway. It is, and then hyper additionally. So it is hyper-simultaneous. And it has the species relativity. We are a species body of individual bodies, just like the other species bodies. See, we have had this left out, just like we have had left out. The breaching method is a scientific value inseparable from the telling of American history, from its parts individually grouped together. It is instead a scientific value used by a predicate action with facts method, and or as simultaneously as a criminal insidiousness delivery system method. A propagation method already propagated self-cultivated roles, blaming other things, others, or selves. For example, for things we're supposed to blame on the breaching method. For communications, which is simultaneously greater than and more finite than what people say, especially when everything they say is being measured and maintained by a breaching method. And them pretending to have free speech anyway. Pretending they don't discern the breaching method's roles with economic narratives, variables, and identities, names, vaccines. So we have obligations by our founders to have uses of words like war crimes separated, not delineated, from separate, not used to screen their roles. Screening the breaching method, worse than war crimes. Those bodies that are countering war crimes are still collusions. All sides in criminal and civil cases used remotely there at the crime scenes and per worse names involved. Boxings. I teach us things. Black pupils. Here. Let's get them on paper, one name in sequence. Fix the World Trade Center. Watch what they're involved with. Fear. I'll teach you here.